Hi, everybody. Aftermarket revenue can represent 2 to 3 times the revenue of the initial sale of a product. Profit from aftermarket operations usually represents most, if not all, of the company profits, and it can be 4 times greater than that of equipment sales. Aftermarket is a long-term source of recurring revenue, and at a time when manufacturers are using industrial machines and equipment longer than their intended cycles, service and maintenance become a critical source of steady revenue. This is why we're going to talk today about after-sales business, why it matters to manufacturers, what are the main trends and disruptions in this business, and we're going to discuss how to benefit from the latest technology advancements to reinvent after-sales. I'm your host, Dominique Gilles. I lead the Teamcenter SLM business globally. And with me, I have the great panel of experts. I'm super proud to have them with me today. I have Ali Pinder. Ali is a research VP at IDC, leading research and analysis of the service and the customer support market. I also have Nanda Chitrala. Nanda is a senior director at Salesforce, leading industry and product strategy for the manufacturing market. And I have Ashish Dubey. Ashish is a business development consultant at Siemens Software in the R&D team developing Teamcenter SLM. So you heard me talking about after sales and using also aftermarket in this discussion. I'll be using the words alternatively, as I will not make any difference between after sales and aftermarket. So first, let's turn to Ali. Ali, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, great. Thanks, Dominique. My name is Ali Pinder, once again, Research Vice President here at IDC. I lead our research when we look at the aftermarket and service lifecycle management, which broadly looks at ways in which organizations, often manufacturers, think about how they could differentiate their business through the act of maintaining, installing, and servicing the equipment and products that they've sold into the field.
Thank you very much. So there is no doubt in the audience that manufacturers' aftermarket organizations are becoming more and more strategic, right? You published a brief in the beginning of this year that is titled Aftermarket 2.0, the strategic engine for growth and customer success through servitization. And in this brief, you talked about an aftermarket shift going on. Ali, could you summarize what this aftermarket shift is about?
Yes. So in a lot of ways, I've been covering this space for just over 17 years now. I know I look young, but I've been here for a while. One of the things that I think is really interesting about this market is the evolution of organizations, specifically manufacturers and their service partners, in the way in which they're no longer just looking at cutting costs out of the operations. These organizations recognize the opportunity that the aftermarket can be a driver of not only differentiation, but profitability and revenues. I think there's a real opportunity as we think about how organizations have shifted to be less of a cost center for their organizations and more of a profit center, having their own dedicated P&Ls. One of the intriguing pieces of our findings, if you go to the next slide, is the fact that organizations in the aftermarket can be a catalyst for growth as service, enables recurring revenue streams. You mentioned this a little bit in your preamble, Dominique, that the margin coming out of the service and aftermarket business is much more robust and recurring when you think about their counterparts on the transactional product side of the sales organization. When we engage with customers, a top driver of value for the aftermarket is really that piece around improving and delivering quality service outcomes to customers, which enhances that revenue opportunity and the margin that can come from the aftermarket. Beyond traditional services, we also see that leading aftermarket organizations are innovating within the space to identify new digital service products that can be delivered to customers, which include things like digital assistance, training, consultation, dashboards, and customer portals. Organizations are able to take the rich data coming off of the products, assets, and equipment and turn that into insights that can be contextualized, personalized, and relevant, as they engage customers. And the most important part is doing that at scale, right? Most of the businesses on this call are, dealing with, thousands and, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers every day. So the ability to take insights and data to really drive at that revenue engine has to happen at scale across your business.
For sure. Yes. Thanks a lot, Ali, for sharing this data. In order to seize that opportunity, what are the main challenges you think that manufacturers have to overcome?
Yeah, that's not an easy question. I think you're throwing me the tough ones early, right? So, in our space in the aftermarket, there are a number of challenges that organizations find. And it's not only just the tried and true things from a decade ago where you just need to build a better product, build a better widget, a better piece of equipment. What we find manufacturers struggle with today is the fact that competition, the drive from the C-suite to drive revenue and margin growth, and then also, the workforce challenges of innovating and differentiating as being key challenges. The need to deliver on customer outcomes in a new way that can deliver value and quality at each interaction and engagement. And I really think the biggest opportunity for manufacturers in the aftermarket is taking those challenges and switching it so those challenges become your superpowers, right? If you go to the next slide, one of the areas that I continue to think there's a real opportunity for us to grow and deliver value is this piece around breaking down silos within organizations. It's been a challenge for organizations for decades now that you've had functions within the business, within engineering, within supply chain, within sales, marketing, and service, and they don't often talk to each other. There's no interaction that allows for these businesses or these functions to really share data, provide access to the right insights, personalize these data points to be able to deliver the right set of answers to questions that are happening at the speed at which service is occurring. So what I like to call out a few areas in this slide is, the fact that, over 800 manufacturers and after service organizations really see their ability to take insights and do something different with it, to drive it innovation, to provide better insights for a wide variety of users within the business, to collaborate better. And all this, in my mind and within the data set, we find is that data can drive the right decisions, and AI is going to be critical to this shift, to this ability to break down the silos of organizations, to deliver a new set of answers to the questions that we've had. Too often, organizations still make decisions within silos or based on what has always been done in the past. I think, and all of our research is finding that AI insights have the ability to break down silos across business functions like engineering, manufacturing, sales, and service. And the insights can be contextualized around the answer and not just another data file. This automated data flow establishes a digital thread of insights that ensure recommendations are informed by data across the business, improving product quality, service delivery, and customer outcomes. Another challenge that especially we bring into the discussion when the concept of AI comes around is the talent shift and the skills gap that impacts many manufacturers. There just aren't enough human workers to deliver aftermarket service, especially as organizations look to grow and expand service opportunities. If you go the slide right here that we just shared, I'm really excited about the opportunity around AI for business. And this slide highlights the fact that AI in our world within IDC is not about replacing humans. It's not about reducing headcount. That's a small slither of the data that you see from this slide. What's really exciting in my mind is the way in which AI is going to power a new set of skills. It's going to augment work. It's going to deliver the manufacturer and aftermarket service worker with the superpower that allows for them to be able to have the insights at the point of service and the point of need. And I really think the opportunity around AI is, equipping the service workforce with the tools and the data and insights and information on demand to really be able to deliver a new set of value propositions to customers. No one wants to do more work just to do more work. You want to be able to augment your workday to be able to leverage insights to focus on what you are passionate about and what your customers are willing to pay for. The real opportunity in my mind is taking AI insights and having that, supercharge your ability to deliver a new set of quality outcomes and experiences to customers.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, breaking the silos, very important. You talked about the digital thread. You talked about AI. And obviously, we are going to come back to AI in that webinar. It's super important. But before we do so, based on your extensive surveys, Ali, and in the Aftermarket 2.0 brief that you published earlier this year, you came up with a vision for what manufacturers can expect from reinventing the aftermarket operation. So I'm sorry, it's going to be another tough question, Ali, but could you please summarize this vision of what manufacturers can expect from reinventing their aftermarket operations?
Yes, and it's really exciting, right? I don't think any of us go to work every day to be a loss leader or to be an organization that's not driving the value of the business. And when I think about the aftermarket and the new opportunity as these functions of the operation are driving really transformative future visions of the business, there's a few areas that step out. And the first is the money, right? We've talked about this quite a bit already, but within the aftermarket, this new vision of this side of the business is really to drive the revenues that will spark the innovation that's happening within the organization. From our perspective, the aftermarket really has an opportunity to not only deliver consumables, parts, and standard service contracts, which we've been doing. I'm bringing myself into this. We've been doing for decades now, right? Where you roll a truck, you swap out parts, and you charge the customer, right? That's part of the revenue stream. It's an important part, but I really think the innovation is going to come from delivering new sets of services to customers that they're willing to pay for and pay a premium for. So these new revenue streams, which are recurring, allow for an upsell, a cross-sell, and this new as-a-service servization model where you're not just selling equipment that's transactional and one time or once every 10, 15, 20, 50 years you're selling a piece of equipment, but you're really engaging with customers on this ongoing consultation where your goals are aligned to drive at revenue. And this is an innovative way in which organizations, manufacturers, and the aftermarket businesses are thinking about their interaction and engagement with customers. I also find that this shift in this new model allows for an improved customer experience where outcomes aren't transactional. You're not just looking at meeting an SLA where I need to be somewhere in 4 or 8 hour windows. It's really about ways in which you can personalize your customer experiences to cement those partnerships. So there's not your competitors, even in your markets that you feel are very much disrupt proof. You're able to solidify those relationships with the customers. And the final piece that I think is really interesting in this AI everywhere era that we have coined here at IDC is the opportunity to be data driven within the decisions that are being made across the business. So each and every employee and function of the aftermarket operations has the tools and insights to make real-time, fast decisions that are the right decisions at the right time.
Okay. Yeah, very, very insightful. Thank you very much. Obviously, you've talked about AI. AI is very important. We see AI coming top of all the surveys you've made and you've shared with us. Now, could we sort of double click on that, Ali, and go one level deeper? And how should manufacturers look at AI and Gen AI and agentic AI in the whole service lifecycle management process? What are the without going too deep, but the 2-3 categories that they should look at AI for?
Yeah, and those are a lot of acronyms up there. So I know we can have a deep dive for another hour to talk about the nuances between AI, generative AI, and agentic. But where I think there is an interesting convergence of this language and these capabilities as technology tools is the fact that most of the businesses on this call, if you've started investing in your digital transformative journey, even yesterday, if not years and years ago, you're going to have a number of systems, applications, and platforms that your teams leverage every day. And going back to that silo discussion, you're going to have data that's flowing across your business that often doesn't interact and engage at all. You're also going to have dealers, distributors, suppliers, and partners that also have their own technology infrastructure. In my mind, the real opportunity around AI is to be able to orchestrate that data flow across enterprise applications within your business. Not only your own data, but your partner data, your customer data, and the ability to quickly automate the decisions that are being made based off of all those data points across your business. Another area that I think is interesting around both agentic AI and kind of traditional AI is the fact that too often the decisions that are being made in back and mid office functions of the organization, maybe specifically like the engineering and manufacturing team, are made based off of history and not real-time data coming off the asset and off the service organization from a transactional perspective. Just think about a service tech goes into the field, they get on site and they realize the way in which this customer's using this asset is different than the way we modeled it in the past, right? I really think there's an opportunity for AI to ingest all of that data that's happening at the edge or on the customer site to inform decisions made in design and quality teams. The access to data, I think, is really an opportunity for organizations to evolve, and AI speeds up that data flow. And it rationalizes all those data points. If you think about the millions of assets and products and components and parts that are in the field actively being engaged with, there's no engineer that can take that data as a human and try to ingest that and make decisions at the speed at which we need to, right? So AI really has an opportunity to change that process.
So if I understand correctly, Ali, so that's really AI to transform the customer experience. I mean, that's also AI to transform how engineers are going to be working in the company. Yeah.
Yes, all of the above.
All of the above. Thank you very much. Hey, just before we move on to the next section in this webinar, do you have some final thoughts you would like to share with the audience?
Yes. So there's a number of thoughts, but I'll leave you with just a few. Right. I think first and foremost, I would recommend that you start today. So when we have this discussion around AI, often a lot of the hype around it is something that is future off. Something's going to happen in 2030. It's something you can test and pilot today, but it's not going to be impactful to your business right away. I really think the opportunity that I find in organizations is that disruption's coming for your business, regardless of the industry which you're in. And if you don't start today around your technology and digital transformation, you're going to be well behind your peer group, your customers, and the position you need to be in to evolve and transform. I also think it's important for you to recognize that your customers want and demand more value from you. They don't just want transactions that are commodities. They don't just want the engagements that you've delivered historically. They want you to be able to leverage the data and insights you have to give them exceptional outcomes and experiences. They often, we look at the aftermarket as being a cost center. What I want to leave you with today is that it should be your differentiator when you think about your business. This is the opportunity to engage with customers frequently in a recurring manner that delivers value. And finally, it's important to move beyond. If you're going to start today, try to, as quickly as possible, move beyond the hype and the proof of concepts. Really find the near-term value propositions from the use cases and the way in which you're investing in AI, because that's going to be how you're going to differentiate your business.
Well, thank you very much, Ali.
Thank you for watching. To learn more about this topic, check out the links in the description. And if you enjoyed what you saw, like the video and subscribe to the channel.